Hello and welcome to Black Economics TV. We have with us today Debra Blackman. She is a podcaster. She has quite a story in terms of her early life and how she got into podcasting, but she's going to tell us a little bit more about that. So tell us.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. So, if I may just go back to how I got into it, because I think that might show everybody the journey that I've been on to make this all clear to people. So, I'm an abuse and trauma survivor from childhood. Both my parents, I now realise, have mental illness. And if there was an exam to be a parent, I don't really think they would have passed. But there we go, that was it. And so they had me. And life wasn't easy. I was frightened, I was in pain sometimes and was abused, etc. But on the surface, everything was okay, as it often is, when you go out and about, etc., and you're sworn to secrecy. And the other thing is my parents had some money. They weren't necessarily rich, and they certainly weren't poor. So they held certain status within their community, and that meant that everybody thought that they'd be perfect people. And unfortunately, behind closed doors, that wasn't the case. And I say that because that directed a large part of my life. And it wasn't until I had a nervous breakthrough, and I do absolutely say it was a breakthrough. And at that point, again, using a phrase, I had more faces than a Rubik's Cube. I was all things to all people, chronic people pleaser, had no self-worth, had no desire to be in this world, etc., and tried to take my own life at my lowest point. And it was at that point that God spoke to me. And I will never forget it. I thought I was going mad. I heard this voice and I thought, oh, crikey, okay, this is the end now. I've gone schizophrenic. And this voice said to me, you're okay. I'm going to look after you. And you know what? God had been speaking to me for all my life. I just never chose to listen. And I went, who is this? And they said, I'm here to look after you. And I went, right, okay. And they said, we've got a mission for you. It's a bit like, Mission Impossible if you choose to accept it. And I went, right, okay. And he said, you're going to spread your voice and your message out to the world, and you're going to provide a global platform for people to do the same. And I'm like, say that again? So they said it again. Global platform to share my voice, and I was going to have a global platform to be able to help others to do the same. And I went, but I haven't got a voice. You're talking to the wrong person.
Oh, really?
And they went, no, it's you. And I'm like, oh no, what have you done? So I surrendered at that point, because if I looked at my life the way it was, I hadn't been doing such a great job of it. So I thought, well, there's nothing really left for me. I've now got to surrender. So I surrendered to God and I went, okay, I'll do it. I went,
Okay.
how? It wasn't for me to reason how. God said, I
Yeah.
will put the people, places, circumstances, and things into your life to make it happen. And I went, okay. So, with that being said, about 2 weeks later, I got invited to go on a podcast. Never really heard of them before. This was a few years ago. Just thought, well, God said, go do it. I went, okay, I'll do it. I was dreadful, absolutely horrendous. Couldn't look up into the camera, mumbled into my hands, was terribly embarrassed, talking about my story. I think I burst into tears a few times as well.
Oh.
And the host, I thought, well, that's it. I've really messed this up now. This is awful. I don't like it. I wish I hadn't done it. Da 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 da. Off I went. A couple of days later, the host is in touch with me and said, could you come on as a guest again? And I'm like, why? It was awful. So they said, we had the best listener ratings we've ever had. And I'm like,
Really?
really? So anyway, 7 episodes later, it became like the Debra Blackman show. I decided,
Really? You were
yeah,
on 7 times?
I know, one after the other. I thought people are going to
Wow.
get sick and tired of me being on this person's show. And so I kept on talking, and they said, have you ever thought about having your own podcast? And I said, no, no way. And they said, we think you'd be really good at it. And I went, well, I haven't got the first idea of how to do it. Anyway, God said, people, places, circumstances, and things in my life, just say yes. So I went online and I said, how do you podcast? I went on a little course, and it was a little course. And I thought to myself, right, here's my journey. So I think the greatest achievement with my podcasting is that I even started it, to be honest. And now it's transformed me, it's transformed my business, it's transforming others that I teach and train to be good podcast hosts and guests and have their own podcasts. And it's giving people that voice and that platform that God said to me that I needed to create. And I've now collaborated with a gentleman in Australia. So he said around the world. So I'm absolutely 100% trying to do it around the world. And the doors keep on opening, Dawn. People keep on coming into my lives like you have. You're going to help me write my book. It's just one of these things which, because I've surrendered now and I'm willing to let go, I think that's one of the key things in this. I don't have to feel like I have to control anything anymore. I help people from the genuine bottom of my heart, helping them to get their podcasts so that they can elevate their voices, that they can get more sales for their business, that they can be the authority that they always knew that they were, but people just weren't listening to them against the noise of social media that's all saturated, to have that voice and come out there, all guns blazing, be proud and wonderful of who you are, and what you have to bring to the world. And that's what I hope people to do. So it's not a job, it's a passion. I absolutely love it. And so many people
Oh,
now are benefiting from that moment of desperation that turned into the best breakthrough I've ever had in my life.
oh, that's lovely. Well done. Honestly. So let's go back a bit. You said that you were abused from a young age. From what age would you say that was?
I think I was abused from before I can remember, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
discovered that my mum, they both passed away now, but discovered that my mum would have been classified as a covert narcissist.
okay,
You see, the thing is, we have to remember that my parents were children of the Second World War. What they saw,
okay.
heard, and what they were privy to, you know, it's not for young people to see. Now they had a choice. They didn't have to do what they did, and they did. So that was for them to bear whatever burden that is on their souls. Because I've forgiven them, because I thought, well, at the end of the day, with God's grace, if I keep on with this hurt, resentment, and victimhood, as difficult as it was to let go, it would only imprison me all my life. And I didn't want that. And God showed me a way to be able to break free of that, which I'll be eternally grateful for. So,
Did you leave home at a
oh
early
yeah, well,
age?
I was kicked out at about 16 and a half, coming up for 17.
Okay,
I went out one day and my parents put these draconian rules in place that they wanted to basically control me. So I had time slots that I had to be home. And
okay,
I went home and I think I was about 15 minutes late. And in those days, we didn't have mobile phones. So
yeah.
I get home. My key wouldn't open the door. They double locked all the doors. I couldn't get in.
Wow.
And from that moment on, I was homeless.
Oh,
I had £5 back in the day. This was in the early 80s. I had £5 in my little purse in my handbag. I'd actually, because I lived in the countryside, I had a little car that I'd saved up for. And this was probably too early to drive back in the day, but literally there wasn't really anything on the roads back then, not where we lived. It was very,
mm,
very isolated. So I got in my little car and I drove to the local phone box and I reversed the charges to somebody that I kind of knew who was a friend from school. And I just said, can I come and stay with you? And they went, why? And I went, can I speak to your mum? And I got the mum on the phone. And I
mm.
said, could I stay with you, please? And you know what? I think people knew. I think people knew what was going on and they never said anything. And so this lady said, yes, you can come and stay. And I had the clothes I stood up in, £5 in my purse, and I started my life from then.
So you didn't go back to get your things from your parents' house?
Nah, they wouldn't have let me in, to be honest. It was so traumatic. It was, yeah, I'm sure that the people that I was staying with had had a chat with my mum and dad. I'm sure they must have done. But at the end of the day, I was there. And then they gave me some of my friends' clothes that I could borrow, which obviously I had to wear because I didn't have any money really and what have you.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
still carried on with my education until I took my A levels. I never said anything to anybody because the shame of it for me, and
Mm,
kids bring it on themselves, don't they? So I
yeah,
social surfed for a number of years because I hadn't got anywhere else to go. And I was so
yeah.
fortunate that the people in my life looked after me. I was incredibly vulnerable. And so I'm just eternally grateful that the people that I turned to were nice, kind, decent people who looked after me.
Did you ever make up with your parents later on?
Right, that is an interesting question because my parents, as I said, had mental illness. My father must have been abused as a child as well. I mean, the classic case, I think, really. Um, my mum was this narcissistic lady. There was no getting through to them. They No, there wasn't. There was no getting through to them. So the one thing is, I made my peace with them. I
Mm.
made my peace with them. Through God's help, I made my peace with them. And whatever they're doing, wherever they are now, because they're no longer with us, um, I've forgiven what happened.
Oh, okay.
So I made my peace.
Mm.
Whatever happened to them, I wouldn't know. No, I don't know. I did see them after that. And I could be around their company, etc. But nothing was ever said, nothing was ever spoken about.
Really?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a strange family dynamic in that regard. But hey, you hear horror stories of other people, and I got away relatively lightly. But it's what happened. And the wonderful thing with this is, if anything can be wonderful about a situation like that, is that it got me to where I am now. And that's, again, you hear from me, I'm always grateful for the opportunity. I wouldn't change a hair on my head or an experience in my life. And I've got regrets because I'm not perfect, so I've done things wrong as well. I know I've hurt people because I was in a bad place for years. I mean, like years. I had a successful career. I wasn't a very nice person, least of all to myself. And I used to try and fix people, meddle, all with the basis of thinking I was doing good. But I was just
Wow.
sticking my nose in where it wasn't wanted, and always thought to myself, why do people come into my life and then leave me? And it's because I smothered them. I tried to help them so much that when they got better or what have you, they couldn't bear my overbearingness with them. And I know
Oh,
how that, because I was desperate for somebody to love me, you see. But that's what
oh,
happens when you're desperate. You do the wrong things and things don't turn out the right way.
okay, okay. Wow. Can I ask, was it physical abuse or sexual abuse or both?
It was everything. Mental, physical,
Really?
sexual. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Did you have any confidence that you could share how you were feeling during those
No.
days? Oh, no
No.
teacher who would lend an ear?
No. And in fact, interestingly enough, um, I do you know what? This is weirdest thing ever. I thought it was normal. I thought other kids were going through this. I thought that
Oh,
everybody had this life. And because the indoctrination and the secrecy that I had been sworn to, which was just normal as a kid, I never said anything to anybody.
mm,
I would have thought that because of the behaviors that I was displaying, and sometimes, you can see bruises on a child when they get ready for gym class or what have you, that
oh,
somebody would have noticed. And I was incredibly, incredibly thin. I mean, like really thin. And although I
oh,
was fed, my parents didn't withhold food from me, but I was so anxious and fearful and living in fight or flight I couldn't eat anything because I was always concerned of what was going to happen next. And even to this
Oh,
day, I have to make sure that I eat good food and that I eat, because that's probably one of the first things that goes out of my life is the desire to eat. Because
yeah.
if I do get stressed, it's that remembrance of no, I can't eat because I might have to run or what have you, or I can't sit with these people for too long because something awful might happen.
I
So
mean, that's terrible emotional abuse as well. I mean, I can understand because it's as if you're living without peace for a long period of time, and you don't want to be eating. And you know that when you're distressed, you can't really eat, can you?
no, well, I know I can't. No, I know some people go, oh yeah, yeah, I want to eat chocolate cake all day. No, that isn't for
Okay.
me. So I think that having gone through that situation, and of course, you get to be an adult, but I carried a lot of that with me, which is understandable. So the relationships that I had would often mirror the type of relationships that I've had growing up. So I don't have a partner. I've had gentlemen in my life, varying degrees of working and not working out as a relationship. I've had violent men in my life. I've had abusive men
Oh,
in my life. And I think that's down to the fact that often I would be attracted to the types of people that reminded me of my parents.
oh no. Wow.
And I don't think that's uncommon. I don't think I'm anything special in that regard. I think when I had the therapy, when I had the nervous breakthrough, the lady said, I have something great to tell you. And I said, what's that? And she goes, you're classic. You're not going mad. You're not the only one that's
Mhm.
been, doing this. You're a classic case, Deborah. And I got great comfort from that because the whole of my life I thought, I must be so odd. I must be this weird, just one
Yeah,
person in the
yeah.
whole universe. And in fact, actually, no. Unfortunately, in this world today and in past worlds, it happens. And so, yes, that was a comfort, if anything was going to be a
Okay.
comfort, that was.
I must say, you used the term that I haven't quite heard before, nervous breakthrough. Explain how that happened. Did something trigger you?
Well, interestingly enough, I'd gone out and it was meant to do with business. And this gentleman said, oh, I can't meet you during the day. We're going to have to unfortunately meet in the evening. Is that okay? And I said, well, it's business, so I'm not really. So he said, look, I'm so sorry. I'm just so busy during the day. So I went, oh, okay. So anyway, there's this little bistro in my town, and he said, "Can I meet you there?" And I went, "Well, yeah." And I thought, "Well, it's this public space, what have you." So I went with my file and everything like that, my laptop and all that for the business meeting. And I walked in, and I could see he'd got two glasses of wine, and I said, "Oh, is somebody else joining us?" And he said, "No, that's for you." And I went, oh, that's all right. I said, I'm not a big drinker and I don't drink at all now, but at that point I'd have the odd glass of wine. I said, no, no, you're all right. I said, it's a business meeting. I'll have water. And he said, well, I've got it for you. And I should have thought then that there was a red flag because you don't say that kind of thing in a business meeting. You go, oh, right, okay. And he went, no, have a glass of wine. It's been a long day. And I thought, oh. I don't want a glass of wine, but this is the old me. This is the no boundaries me. This is the people pleasing me. This is the person that thought, I was worthless. So I sat down, I said, I really don't want. And he went, have a glass of wine. And I should have just got up that point and gone. Anyway, off we go. It gets more and more uncomfortable. And I said, I'm going to have to go. I said, because we're not speaking about business. I said, and this is what it was meant to be. And he said something derogatory, which I won't repeat. And it
Wow.
triggered me. It triggered me really badly. I felt very frightened. I felt completely on my own. I felt completely crushed. And in a whole scheme of things, it was a phrase that in a normal situation, you could brush under the carpet, but this brought everything up. And I said, I'm going to have to go. And I started to cry. And I heard him say something, but I didn't know what he said at that point because I zoned out. And I literally ran from that bistro, and I ran and ran and ran. And because I live near where the town is, I walked, and I was so worried that he'd know where I lived. And I ran home, ran upstairs, flung myself on the bed and wept, just
Oh.
uncontrollable weeping. And I couldn't stop. I literally couldn't stop. I thought, right, come on, put yourself together. And I just couldn't stop. It was like
Oh.
decades of pain coming out. And I thought, this is weird. And then I didn't feel myself. I felt like I wasn't me.
Mm.
And I went to sleep and I woke up and I was still weeping when I woke up.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, that's it. I can't take any more. I'm just going to
Oh.
say goodbye to the world because I live on my own. I haven't got anybody to necessarily worry about in that sense. And this is before I got my little doggy. And I thought, right, there's no point in me being here. What am I doing? I've messed up so much. I can't carry on. I don't want to carry on. This is a life I can't bear anymore. So I went to the chemist and I got as many aspirin and everything else I could think of, and a bottle of whiskey. And I thought, that's it. And I'd opened them all up and I'd got them all on the bed. And I thought, I'm not going to be here, and I'd be dead forever because nobody's going to come in because I wouldn't be missed. And I was just about to take the first swig of the pills and the whiskey. And that's when I heard God.
Oh, wow.
So that's the nervous breakthrough, because I
Yes.
had to go through to my lowest point to be able for that to happen.
Wow.
And the beautiful thing is that the peace, the utter peace and love and wonder of when that voice came to me, I thought, am I dead already? Have I, dead? Have I gone? Have I gone? And that was that was weird. I mean, that was just like, apart from thinking I've gone mad because I heard this voice, it was like I was in a different world. And I was in a different world. And it didn't feel like me. And you know what? I changed. I'd
Mm.
completely changed. I didn't realize at the time I completely changed, but I had. The Deborah, the essence of me was there. And the other side of it, the horrific, horrible, disgusting, putrid state that was within me, it went
That's
in
really interesting.
in that nanosecond when God spoke to me. And it was just like,
Yeah,
hmm. So that was the breakthrough. That was the breakthrough moment.
that was amazing. So, had you been going to church? Had you had a relationship with God before that?
No, no, I hadn't. In fact, actually, I was pretty, I was pretty knocked at God. I was pretty
Yes.
knocked at God because I just thought, I'm a decent person. Why are you putting me through all of this? Why am I going through? It's not fair.
Mm.
So in a
Oh,
way, I'd kind of shut God out, to be fair, because I just couldn't see how something that loved me would do that. And interestingly
okay.
enough, when God spoke to me, I'd put myself in that prison. I know what happened, but I went and spiraled downwards. And I take a view that when we're put through challenges and things like that, where we think, you know what? No. There is a way in which if we look up and we spiral upwards, it's a bit like the gym. And I don't want to trivialize this because me of all people know how horrendous it is. We have to tear our muscles apart for them to grow stronger. That's why we physically hurt when we go to the gym if we haven't been for a while, because we're breaking the muscles, we're tearing the muscles. And then they come back and they come back stronger and better and more powerful,
Yes.
bigger. Well, in a way, that's what happening to me. I was being forged in the fire. I was being wrestled with. I was being worked. I was being made into this incredible miracle of which we all are. It's not just me, everybody's a miracle. And when I realized that, I suddenly could see the point of it all.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow, that's quite a journey. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I think there are so many people in life who come to this lowest point where they've had enough and they can't see a way out. I'm thankful that you heard from God. Um, Sometimes God provides other people to come, or sometimes He brings a thought to you. Someone might come and say some comforting words, or you might listen to something, even a podcast, and that can help to strengthen you. And I think this is the amazing thing is that you had the victory in the sense that you're now able to go forth and help to strengthen other people. So when you decided to start your podcast, how did you plan it? Was it something that you procrastinated over? You were delaying? Or did you sort of take a few weeks, few months, even a few years to get it started?
Right. So, what God is telling me now from that moment on is it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be how you want it. It doesn't have to have the applause of everybody. Just go do it. Just go do
Just do it.
it. Warts and all, just go do it and learn while you're doing it. And be authentic and be gracious and be humble and thirst for knowledge while you're doing it. And that's what I did because I had such a burning purpose and I will always have that purpose. I take on things now, and the podcast was one of them. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that you could record on Zoom. I didn't know that you needed to upload onto YouTube channels. I didn't know about the platform managers. I didn't know that you could interview guests. I was the woman without the voice. For goodness sake, I didn't even know. So God put that first person into my world to say, would I be a guest to share my story about what happened to me and my nervous breakthrough? This is literally 2 odd weeks afterwards. And you know what? I hadn't hardly told anybody because it was so fresh. So somehow or other, the word got out and it was meant to get out. That's why I share abundantly with this because it's not look at me and poor me. It's about somebody might identify with this and think, that resonates with me, or I know somebody who's going through something and that could be helpful for them. So don't think I'm just trying to garner stuff for myself by doing this. That's not the point. This is to help other people. So the podcast started badly, but it was like, I've got to start somewhere. And I've been given this mission. And it's been one of those amazing journeys that over time, I've got better and better and better. The podcast is getting better and better because I do it unlike anybody else that I know, because again, I'm being directed by God with what I'm doing. I do this with an emphasis on getting sales for your business. And I was a business developer at a high level during my career before the
Oh,
this breakthrough, very high level. Used to sell in millions of pounds worth of projects, etc., and open the doors of big companies and deal with CEOs and stuff like that. So I know how to make something into a sales funnel. And I'm very creative like that from God. I mean, God is guiding me, so that's fabulous. And so I teach people and I put in place how to get your podcast to be a sales and marketing funnel. And
hmm.
I worked out the process because process is very important. And then once I got the process working, I just did more of it. So I duplicated it over time, over and over again. It's not for lots of listeners. We don't garner lots of listeners. We haven't got lots of subscribers. That's not what it is. as God said, this is to help other people have their voice. So I concentrate on the business community and I showcase my guests' businesses for free. What that does is that helps them because I choose them wisely. That builds the trust element in me because I'm the host. I'm the person that is the leader, if you like, of my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you can get people to say yes to you and invite them on your podcast. That if you wanted to try and invite them for a business meeting or a discussion, the likelihood is that they would probably say no, or you wouldn't get a response at all. So that,
Mm.
in a way, has got me speaking with and doing business with people that I would never have thought ever that I would be able to speak with and do business with. And that one of those is a gentleman. He's a world-renowned Tao healer. It's a grandmaster. It's called Master Shah. He has about 1.6 million followers on social media. Big following.
Wow.
He
Wow.
travels the world healing in various venues, etc. And I went one to one in London. Now, it was his PR company that got in touch with me to say, could he be a guest on my show?
Wow. Fantastic.
I know. And I'm like, wow, fabulous. Yes, of course. Now, what that does for me is when my episodes, which we're recording now, go out, they will go onto his social media channels, including YouTube. And guess what? That will be seen by all of his followers, 1.5 million people. Now, I'm sure out of them, there's going to be some people that's interested in what I do, interested in being a guest, interested in speaking to me, etc. But think about it, my profile for free has absolutely been elevated. And just like we're doing today, through your wonderful channel and your beautiful work, people will see me and I might be useful for them. I might
Absolutely.
resonate with them, my story, or somebody think, I'd love to do a podcast. I don't know the first thing about it, or I'm doing something wrong. How do you get sales out of being doing a podcast? Well, I teach that, or I want to be a guest on somebody's show. I teach how to be a good guest as well, which is really important. How to be a good interviewer, like you, Dawn. Absolutely amazing.
Thank
So,
you.
wow, and it's just like I would never have had this wonderful discussion with you unless we'd have met from the sort of the thing of the podcast. So it's opening that, and I can see that God's work is being done because actually in a relatively short period of time, this platform is being built, more people are being helped, more voices are being heard, more businesses are being seen and valued, more people are getting recognized through the work that I'm doing. And that's what it's all about for me. Yes, there's a commercial element. I've got to live, I've got to pay the bills. And the great thing is that I'm learning and I'm giving value from my learning. I'm not keeping it to myself. I'm sharing it with others so that they can grow their communities. I'm doing the Real Deal podcast, which you were on this morning, which is a networking group over in Australia, UK, got international people, Bali, Northern Norway. I mean, it's a truly
Yeah, amazing.
international platform. And myself and the co-host Anton, we're co-hosting it. And this is from the woman that didn't have a voice. So the
Oh,
personal development for me is and will continue to be extraordinary because I never thought I could write a book. And then I met you. I never thought I could speak to loads of people. And now I am. I was on the stage in London with Master Shah and I spoke to over
wow.
700 people. I didn't have a voice.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So if I can do it, I put that and I teach people how I've done it so that people can do it as well.
Well, I hope this is an encouragement for people because sometimes people get a message or thoughts come into their head, whether they feel it's from God or wherever, and then they don't follow it through. But you followed it through, so it's fantastic. Some doors opened for you and you went through. You didn't hesitate and think, oh, should I, shouldn't I? You went through those doors. And I love the way you said you started. It wasn't perfect. You learned along the way, and that's the way that we ought to be. Tell me about the name of your company, Vi Essentially Limited.
Yeah, V
Why that
essentially.
name?
Yeah, so VIESSENTIALLY, V essentially. So if you do VIE on its own, that means life.
Hmm.
And then if you combine it with essentially, which is the next bit, so it's basically VI and then essentially, but it's VIE life, essentially. So it's living an essential life.
Oh,
That's what it's all about, living an essential life, V essentially. People, when I do it, I thought, yeah, I get it. And then it's sometimes, but thank you for asking, because that was before I'd had the nervous breakthrough. And God was
mhm.
obviously speaking to me then because it
Okay.
was it was something where I thought, what with that? Living an essential life, living your
Yeah.
purpose, living your passion, doing the things that are meaningful for you. Yeah, that's what that's all about.
Okay, brilliant. So, how did you start promoting your podcast when you did it initially?
Right. Well, I didn't know how, basically. I mean, I was told that you put it on YouTube, etc. So I learned how to do that. Now what we do is we've got social media. I learned a few tips from you, and we're getting some of the podcasts which we think are really interesting and sort of talking about them on our podcast as well. Um, we're investing in social media. So, I mean, we're having was it search engine optimization? We're getting it out there. We've just changed the branding of it so that the thumbnails look fantastic, etc., so that it'd be more
Mhm.
interesting for the people to look at it and go, oh, yeah, I'll have a look at that. But the great thing is for us, this is to showcase our guests, and I teach other people to do that. So you don't need a large subscriber base. You don't need lots of listeners. I know you've got an amazing YouTube with thousands and thousands. I think it's 26,000 followers and I think it's 1.5 million listeners and what have you. It's just brilliant what you've done. But the great thing is what we do is for people go, "Oh, I've not got that kind of following. How on earth would I get that? Is actually using it, as I say, as a sales funnel so that you don't need lots and lots. They will grow over time, but the promotional element of it, if you showcase your guests in the right way, it's for their publicity and profit. So actually what you're doing is you're opening the doors to be able to speak to your guests from a business perspective, but adding value right the way at the beginning of it and helping them get onto your podcast. And I teach who should be a good guest on your show. So that's really good. But yes, the more we learn, the more we develop on the technical side, that's going to be great for our podcast as well. And the fact that we've got video means that we do have a show element to it as well. So it's always nice to have the audio and the video on a podcast because we're visual creatures, and a lot of people like to say, "Who is the host? I'd like to, get to know
Mhm.
them and all of that kind of stuff." So yeah, and then a lot of it goes on to our social media as well, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, so that we do these clips and we put things on and they get subtitles on there, and people like watching those because again, as human beings, we like to click on videos, we like to watch that kind of stuff. So that's interesting. So you can repurpose your content and use it throughout all of your social media as well.
Okay, so you're appearing on Black Economics TV, and we were set up to encourage um, wealth growth and the rise in economic status among Black communities. What's your thoughts about Black communities? What are your thoughts around what's going on in America with DEI? They're turning their back on that now. Well, at least Trump and his half of America have decided that we don't care about DEI, which obviously affects not only Black people, though, it's also affecting the disabled, it's affecting trans people, it's affecting women. So, what's your thoughts around Black communities and what do you suggest that we do?
I'm all about inclusion. Um, I like people. I've come, I was somebody that I was just into me and trying to protect me. And now I feel like a member of the human race and that I'm included. And that's a wonderful feeling. And I've been marginalized as well, because I didn't have a voice. I was disenfranchised. I didn't feel worthy. So I think from a Black community perspective, I think it's great. It's like a collective, isn't it? Like you get creative communities, that you get communities in sport. I think that communities are good because they bring people together with a common interest. And I think that to have that supportive element within communities, people can get that from church group communities or spiritual communities, health and wellness, that type of community. So I think communities, it's based around a broader family, isn't it? Which I think is was wonderful. And I think what you're doing, Dawn, is fantastic because let's face it, I'm not a Black person. So you're looking at interesting people to come on to your show, your podcast, to be able to enrich your community, which I think is wonderful. And I feel very part, and I just said to you the other day, I consider you a friend. If if we lived closer, I'd have you round for a cup of tea and we'd have a chat. So um I just love the fact that you're building this community. And when you're saying about the lack of DEI, I just wish that in human beings we could find it in ourselves not to have these regulations that we need to do the right thing. I wish we'd just do the right thing anyway. I wish that
Yes.
would be in human nature so that we didn't need to have these enforcing regulations to make people notice others that they should always have been noticing. And from people who, I think life is difficult enough. And if you're worried about or concerned about your own sexuality, that's another issue that you've got to carry with you in life. And I know what it's like to have issues in life. I've had a fair old few of them. So it makes things tougher than they need to be. So I'm
Mm.
very accepting of the fact that people, as long as they've got a heart-centered, value-based way in which they wish to live their life, not doing harm to others, making sure that they give and value to others, making sure that they hold themselves responsible and accountable, and I include me in this, to live in the best possible life that they can and to be grateful for what they have, even if it might not be much. And I remember sofa surfing as a youngster, not even knowing sometimes where my next meal was going to be. One of my things was sanitary products. I used to dread coming on my period because I didn't have enough money for the
Oh,
basic sanitary stuff. I mean, it's something, or worrying that people would think I would smell because I couldn't ask my host anymore if can I have a bath because I wouldn't want to
oh,
feel that I was taken advantage. Or clothes not being cleaned. Sometimes we look at somebody and we have a judgment, and maybe that judgment should be suspended until we know about that person
mm,
and why they are there and why they are acting in a way. There are bad people in the world. People necessarily, sometimes you think, that is wrong. But sometimes, if we go deeper into the person, we understand where the problems are. And problems aren't an excuse for behavior, but sometimes we can work people, and that person's got to be willing to change. That's the one thing. You can talk about it, you can put the DEI all over the place, but if that person intrinsically isn't willing to look at a Black person if they're not Black themselves, or and understand the rich heritage and the beautiful culture that they've come from and their family histories and the struggles and the challenges and the achievements that have happened in their particular culture. Because it's just like saying white people are all the same. No, we're not. Black people aren't
yes.
all the same either. And we
Yeah.
get good and we get not so good and we get downright bad everywhere. And that's
Yes.
across the board. But what I'm not about is oppressing anybody else for my own advantage. I'm not about not giving somebody a job because of a belief system or a sexual orientation or a cultural or a racial issue. If you can do that job and you can do it really well and you're the best candidate, and you've got the right attitude, and you've got the right let's get this done thing, you got it. And that doesn't matter about your age either. On one of
Mm.
my podcasts, I've just trained a gentleman who is blind and he is over 80, 80
Oh,
years
wow.
of age. Yes. And he said, can I podcast? I went, absolutely you can. Because I
Wow.
want to share my voice. I said, you go share it. He said, but I'm 80. I went, really? What's that got to do with it? I said, you beautiful speaking voice. He said, well, I can't see very well. I said, well, we'll make sure that somebody's with you to upload or what have you, you know. I said, absolutely, you can podcast because you can talk. If you've got a speech impediment, you can still have a great podcast. You know, I would like to think that if you're whatever you are, I would love to include anybody and everybody into podcasting, from little kids to grannies and granddads, to great grannies and granddads, to people who have just come to England and can hardly speak English. I tell you what, it'd improve your English pretty quickly if you kept on talking. So
Oh,
it's all of that. And I think having a community is really important because I think I didn't grow up with a community. I didn't really grow up with a family that was functioning.
yes, yeah.
And I can really see the benefit of that and the power in that. But it doesn't make anybody better or worse. It's just a
Mm.
lovely community to be in. I'd love to be in
Yeah.
your community, Dawn, whether you're black or not. I think it's fabulous
Well,
what you're doing.
you're very welcome. You're very welcome to join us. So, what about relationships that you've had? Have you had close relationships with people from different races? Because that sometimes really helps us to understand how people are going through life.
Yeah, I had a boyfriend for 4 years who originated from Ghana and lived in
Oh,
London. And yeah, that was fabulous. And you know what? I'm not dismissing, but the type of food. I know that might sound a little bit trivial, but I loved eating the food that where he came from. Now they say, how do you know if somebody's a vegan? Because they'll tell you. So I'm going to tell you now, I'm a vegan. And all the lovely spicy food that he had and those dishes that were lovely, really lovely. And talking
mm,
about his heritage and his culture was fascinating. I mean, it really was. So, yeah, absolutely. That's why I say friendships, close, intimate relationships with people with different cultures. I think we're all human beings,
mm,
all one. We're all human beings and we're all one. And if we can take out that separation and know that if I hurt you, I hurt myself, you know, I hurt me as well. So we're all joined together as a human race and we're all beautiful. And I look at my little doggy and she goes out and there's big dogs and there's small dogs and there's black dogs and there's white dogs and there's multicolored dogs and she don't care. They're dogs. I mean, they're great. She'll run around
well, that was going to be my next question. What's your hobby? But it seems like it's your little dog.
Yeah, my little Tilly. So my Tilly, she's a 2.5-year-old standard wire-haired dachshund. I have to tell everybody everything because I think it's funny. Now, Tilly was the first little living creature that I wanted to take care of. And when I knew I could make that commitment, I'm going to cry now.
Oh,
When I knew I could make that commitment, when I knew that a little living creature needed me, and I knew I could step up and relate to that little creature, I knew I'd made it.
oh, oh. How long have you had little Tilly?
All since she was 8 weeks and she's 2.5 now. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, that's cute.
Well, I've got a lot of
Oh,
love to give, and it's lovely having a companion
mm.
in the evening, and I talk to her. I think any dog owner or cat owner or pet owner would talk to their pets. And she gets me and I get her. And I'm just so grateful for the fact that I I was going to say, no, I won't. And then I did. And it was the best thing that I've ever done is have that little dog.
Oh, wow, amazing. So when you have to travel to go and speak and so on, what do you do with the dog?
Ah, well, you see, we've got doggy daycare during the day.
Really?
Yes, I know. So she goes up ramps, she goes in little play pens, she does everything there. She's with her other little dogs. And then
Doggy daycare. It's like a nursery for dogs.
absolutely, yes. I mean, they
What?
treat them so well. It's hilarious. I mean, she's so funny. And they always, it's always the way the little ones boss the bigger ones about. It's incredible, so cute. And they take them out for walks and stuff like that. And she's got a field that she can run about in. So the other thing is as well, if I'm not at home and it's going to be late, because I wouldn't leave her for many hours, then somebody can look after her overnight there as well. So that's good.
So tell me, what's the cost per day for a dog nursery or doggy daycare, as you call it?
They're pretty good. I mean, I live in the north of England, so the prices in London might differ, but it's about £30 a day.
Really? Wow. It's not too bad.
It's not too bad, and she only goes once a week. I make sure
Okay.
that she's exercised and socialized, but I think it's good for her to get
So
out
she's
without me.
she's socializing with other dogs, yeah?
Yeah, she's having her best life. She's having her best life. She doesn't want to come
Okay.
home.
So everybody who has a dog, bear in mind a dog also needs socializing with other dogs.
Oh, yeah, they do. They do.
Oh, okay. Well, I learned something new today. That's brilliant. Good for you. All right. So if someone wants to start a podcast, part of your business is that you help them to do so. So how can they contact you?
Yeah, so they can contact me by my email, which is my initials, Deborah Blackman, so DB at, and then we've talked about the company name. It's Vessentially, VIESSENTIALLY.com. I will give my mobile because I'm very happy to receive calls. I'm
Oh,
very
wow.
open. So it's 07776 136 330. And I would honestly say, if anything's resonated, not just for business, I'd love to hear from you if you're interested in podcasting or being a guest and thinking about how do you do that. Very happy to talk. But also, if you just want somebody to listen to, I have to say I'm not a trained counselor, but I'm somebody who's been, as they say, around the block a few times. Very happy to listen. And as I said, I'm not qualified in any way, but I'm a friendly ear. So if you feel that there's anything that's resonated, then you're very welcome to be in touch.
Well, I must say, you're the first person, and I think we have about 234 videos on the Black Economics TV channel. You're the first person to give out their phone number. So let me know how that goes if anybody uses it, huh?
Well, I give it out in business environments, etc. I'm sure everybody can know I'm a decent person and that they'll treat me with respect and
Yeah.
so I haven't got anything to worry about by doing that. So anybody's welcome to give me a call.
And I'll also put the number and the email underneath the video as well, plus your a link to your podcast and your own YouTube channel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, if anybody's got a really interesting story, especially within business, of how they started something or the challenges, do be in touch again because I'm always looking for guests who've got
Mm.
great transformational stories. And as I said, being a guest is completely free, and you get those links and you can publish that throughout all of your social media as well and for your own marketing. So very happy to hear from people who might think that they could be a guest on my show.
Oh, brilliant. So, anybody wants to be on a podcast with Deborah? She's just giving you her phone number. Call her up or text or WhatsApp or email. So many different ways to contact people nowadays, honestly.
I know I lose track of it. I think, oh my God, somebody said, I've contacted you. I've left you like we did just before the show. And it's just like, where is it?
Yeah, which email address?
Yeah, which one?
Yeah, because you gave me two. At least you don't have as many as me. I think I have about 17 different email addresses for different things. So
Oh, wow.
And another 17 different social media profiles as well, because you got to compartmentalize things that
Yeah.
you're doing, you know.
Well, especially when you're the author of 20 books and you have all of these extra business operations, etc. I mean, yeah, it's not surprising. So I'm always in awe of you. When you said you were an author of 20 books, I'm like,
Oh,
oh my goodness, that is just stellar. Absolutely amazing.
it comes down to time management and also having the ambition to do particular things, but not just keeping them as ambitions. You've got to schedule them into your day, into your week. You have to decide, okay, I want to write on a book on this particular topic and say, right, give myself a month, 3 months,
Do you know? And you
6 months.
start. You've got to start. And that's what I did with the
Mm,
podcasting. It might not be
abs-
perfect, but if you don't start it, it will never be
absolutely.
perfect. So, and people
Absolutely.
aren't after perfection, Dawn, are they? They want people that resonate, that are authentic, that they can feel, I know that person. I like that person. I could work with that person. If it's too slick and it's too perfect, people go, yeah, but yeah, really. So I'm all for authenticity, and you get what you see on the tin. You know, that's it with me.
And
Total
that's right.
transparency.
And the thing is, we have time. You know, if you think about 24 hours in your day, we have time to do the things we need to do that the Lord has put in our heart. And I'm thankful that you mentioned that God really helped to turn your life around. I too am a Christian, and I do believe that God guides me in the things that I should do also. So I'm so grateful that, He visited you that evening when you felt, oh, wow. Just imagine if that hadn't happened, you wouldn't be here. Oh, that would have been such a tragedy, Deborah.
Well, and when I look back, I think that wrong thinking. My God, how could I have thought like that? But
Yeah.
in that, and this is why I say there's always a way out. There is always another choice. There is always another option. However closed in we feel we are, there is.
Mm,
Because I'll tell you what, if it happened to me, it can happen to anybody. And that
mm,
option that I knew then I have a purpose and I could see everything come into place. It didn't happen overnight, like, oh yeah, okay. There was a few weeks of embedding and that and still, but interestingly enough, I've invested in myself more this year than I ever have in previous years, from coaching, training, putting myself in situations where I've got to grow, putting myself outside my comfort zone. I can't even remember what my comfort zone is anymore because
mm.
it's gone so much. But equally so, in a short period of time, I've come on in leaps and bounds. And I look back, because that's the benefit of hindsight, and think, I'm intrinsically the beautiful essence of me. And I'm also so much more because I've said yes and I've done
Mm,
it and I'm doing
mm.
it. And what is scary to start with, after a few weeks, suddenly becomes normal.
It
And
becomes
that's the
natural.
new normal. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. It's so wonderful to hear about your journey. And I hope that this encourages other people to step out because sometimes people get messages of what they should do, but they don't follow through.
I've had many. I've had many. Like, it took I think human beings have an amazing capacity to live in pain and suffering
Oh,
and not to change. And
okay.
when it wasn't the most awful bit, it took that bit to get me to change. And
Mm,
now I'm much more able to listen to that voice that says, you need to do this, don't do that, you need to do this. And I go, okay, because I don't want to go down to that awful lowest point in my life again to make the decisions that are right for me. I want to make the decisions that are right for me that might feel a bit uncomfortable now, but will save me a whole heap of pain down the future. You know?
yes.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Amen. And it's just that, hey, if it was easy, but it's not, is it? So I'm not saying I've cracked a code or anything or that I'm anything special, but I do know that I'm making choices now in light of the fact that will this fulfill my purpose? Will this drive me to the higher good? Will this glorify God's name? Will this be something that I can look back on and go, yeah, that was the right thing to do. It might not be the easiest thing to do or the most fun thing to do, but actually it was the right thing to do. And I'm proud of the decision of what I made happen in that moment. And I acted in a way which I can look back on and go, yeah, you did well there, kiddo. You were all right. So
Oh.
that makes for a life well lived, I think.
And I think if you can look back over a month and you can see, right, I had so many downloads, so many people listen to me. I've got more clients than I had last month. I've got more income coming in. You can actually measure the effect of what you're doing as you go along. And
Here,
that's
here.
a
Brilliant.
brilliant way to be
Absolutely.
living, I tell you.
I tell you what, the empirical information, that measured result. I was just having a conversation with a gentleman who's a coach just before we came on the podcast, and he was saying he does coaching and it's trying to help people to know that you should be able to measure your progress, that you should be able to see that incremental difference, not just, oh, I feel better, but not that there's anything wrong in feeling better, but actually looking and saying, well, being feeling better, but what has that meant? What has that meant in real terms? And it's
Mm,
measuring that, and it's either in business or in our personal life or with our kids or what have you. And what is that? And often I get the fact that I hear or I read things, people saying thank you to me,
mm.
getting gratitude. And it's like, oh, okay, that's wonderful. Measuring what my output is by helping people with people saying thank you. And
Yeah.
it's like I'm serving people, I'm helping people, I'm putting myself in that situation now, which is uncomfortable, but other people are benefiting. And I'm like, and I benefit,
Well,
that it's
absolutely. It's an amazing sense of well-being when you're helping people. You almost feel like you're paying your dues.
well, that's when my life changed. That's when my
Mm,
life changed, when I stopped serving myself and I served God and I served others. And
mm,
then the benefits just came as a natural payback, if you like, for that. And once I took that from serving myself to serving God and serving others, and I think that was the quickest way that got me out of depression, is to
mm.
serve others. Because often, for me anyway, when I've looked at myself in any great way, there's a negative bias that comes in, there's negativity. But when I'm serving others, I've got that purpose, I've got that fulfillment, I've got that positive bias. So
Absolutely.
self-reflection is important, but the way I was doing it was very negative and drawing down on all the things that were wrong with me and all the things that were wrong in my life to my perception. And now it's just like, there are some amazing things out there and in my life and what have you. And with that attitude comes the nice things in life, like the thank yous, like meeting yourself, like speaking to your wonderful audience. These are the good things in life, and they're happening
Oh,
around me. So that's amazing.
oh. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you for appearing on Black Economics TV. I hope that we can keep in touch and maybe have an update in a year or two when you're off the scale and you'll probably be charging me to speak to you.
Never. You'd always get a free.
Oh, oh, oh. Thank
Oh.
you, Deborah. You take care. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Oh, you too, Dawn. Thank you. And to your audience, thank you so much as well. It's been a privilege.
Oh, take care. Bye.
Bye.